Hey, you guys, come on in here. It's Lisa Alexander, founder and executive director of Stand Up Survivor, and I'm joined by Ms. Zoe Parsons. Hey, Zoe.
Hey.
Hey, so for you guys that were watching the previous ones, we are on take 3 today, and we believe that this is going to work out just fine. No UK lights out today, electricity shortages.
Let's hope not, right? I'm on
I know.
data, I'm on phone battery, I've got like an emergency torch
That's
just in
so
case.
funny. That's hilarious. Me and Zoe were cracking up because we're like, oh my goodness, we have got to get these people this message because everything is trying to stop us. So come on in here. When you hop in, let us know where you're tuning in from. We're excited that you're going to join us. We are a little bit on a time shift because she is all the way in London. So she's joining us. What is it, 6 o'clock over there? 7 o'clock?
Yeah.
Something like that? Yeah. So that's why we're here at noon. So if you can't catch us live, make sure that you catch the replay. But if you can, come on in here. So Zoe is a life and relationship coach. She is also the founder of Self Love After Abuse. So Zoe, thanks for joining me. I'm glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Yay.
Third
So
time lucky.
third time. I know. And Zoe was on earlier in the year as well. And it was just such a good conversation. So I'm excited that you're back because for this month, we're doing Now What November. Oftentimes, as you know, Zoe, as survivors, leave as advocates, we want you to leave. We want you to get to safety. And then what then? I feel kind of sometimes they're kind of left out in the cold to figure out about life after. And one thing I love about, you're going to share a little bit of your story for the third time. But what I love about it is that you've turned what happened to you into a whole, you have your own organization where you talk about self-love after abuse. And I loved it because we have to love ourselves first before we can love anybody else. But I'm rambling.
Totally.
Yeah. So Zoe, tell us a little bit about your story. So yes, please.
Yeah, so I was in an abusive relationship. It lasted 6 or 7 years. And at the time, I genuinely did not realize it was abusive. I couldn't understand some of the things that he would do. I felt very confused by a lot of his behavior and how he made me feel. And I couldn't understand that how someone who could say that he loved me in one breath could then turn around and say such awful things to me. I just couldn't understand it. And obviously what I didn't realize is that obviously this is how an abusive relationship starts. It starts with the emotional, mental manipulation, the coercive control, until it goes into the whole physical aspect. I mean, my mum told me when I was growing up, she was like, oh, if a man ever hits you, gives you a black eye, you leave. And I was kind of like, well, yeah, of course. Why? I just couldn't understand why you wouldn't until I was in that situation.
Yeah.
And I didn't. But it's funny because he actually didn't give me a black eye until 6 months after I left that relationship.
Wow.
And yet, when I look back with the knowledge that I know now, that relationship was highly abusive pretty much from the beginning. Like, he would obviously call me names, put me down. He made me feel worthless. I hated how I looked. Like, it got to the point that I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I just felt ugly, unattractive. I mean, we mentioned it in the last bit for the show we did. It's like one of the reasons I cut my hair is, so my hair used to be really long down to my waist, is he used to use it, pull it, hold me down, restrain me. And it got to the point that he was raping me pretty much on a daily basis. And obviously my hair was one way he kept me pinned. So I decided to take that weapon away from him, and I went and had it cut off. But what I found is, after I finally managed to get free and I left that relationship, the reason I kept my hair is because I actually really like it. I like how it looks, and I decided it was my choice. Yes, the decision I made was because of that. It was like a protective mechanism, but ultimately it was, I keep it because I like it. And I think that's the difference. You see, in an abusive relationship, there's lots of behaviors that can seem healthy and can seem okay, but they're really not. And it's only when you kind of educate yourself about the differences that you can really see how it all works. I mean, it took me quite a while before I actually managed to get the emotional strength to leave. But when I did, I was kind of like, great, I've got the police to remove him, I'm going to be fine, I'll be happy, it's going to be all good. But it wasn't. And essentially for 6 months afterwards, he just stalked me, harassed me, hid in my neighbor's garden, hid in my garden, hid in the bushes across the road, just like constantly watched me. He broke into my home and watched me while I was sleeping, stole my mobile phone. He used my daughter as a means to, you know, manipulate and try and control. And until eventually it ended with him breaking into my home. He battered down my door with a concrete block. He attacked me. He headbutted me, and I ended up having to go to hospital to have 12 stitches in my face because he just like split open my forehead. And I mean, he's actually in prison now. So it took like a year to do all the court stuff and the criminal investigations, but he got sentenced to 11.5 years, and that was for ABH, harassment, breaking of restraining order, and rape. So I kind of count myself as a lucky one, if you can say that, about having been in this situation, because I know that statistically to get a conviction is really hard. And the process is stressful. I know just the process of going through that after trying to come out and heal from the relationship impacted my mental health a lot.
Yeah. So 11 years, and you know, you say you're lucky, and I agree with you, because so oftentimes survivors, victims don't get the justification or the justice, I should say, that they deserve. And so for you, you really did get that. And I know you said it's been about half that time he's been in jail now at this point.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you decided after this, something's got to break. So I know you talked a little bit about it, so we're kind of rehashing it a little bit, but you talk a little bit about how afterwards you were completely lost. You didn't know who you were. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I completely lost my identity. I always say that narcissists did to hide. And what I found is I made the decision that essentially he was in prison, and yet I was still in a prison of my own making, essentially, because I was letting fear control me, and the fear was caused by him. So I had to really, really work through just doing stuff regardless of that fear, you know, going places, dressing in ways. I did a whole heap of, like, I did a boudoir photo shoot, because obviously my self-esteem and my self-confidence was so low. A friend of mine at work, she did one, and she was like, "Oh, Zoe, you have to do this." And I was like, "Oh, I couldn't imagine anything worse, getting naked in front of a strange man." It's like, hell no. I'm like, no, that's just not going to happen. But anyway, he ran like a competition. I won, and guess what? I ended up doing a photo shoot. Needless to say, it was 10 o'clock in the morning. I was drinking vodka and orange to help get me through it, because I was just so nervous. But I thought, you know what? I really wanted to see myself through the eyes of someone else.
He was locked up, and he had an 11-year stint, and still you're still walking around hearing the things that he said, seeing yourself the way that he said that you looked, and the things about you that he said about you. It's amazing how even after, and knowing he can't come out, he's not going to be knocking on your door anytime soon, but the effects of the abuse still affected you. And I think that's a really, really powerful statement. I do. And I think people don't realize that after you leave, there's still so much healing that has to take place.
Oh, there's so much healing.
Yeah, there's a lot of healing. So how did you start that healing journey?
So, I mean, since obviously becoming a counselor and doing what I do, I've kind of formulated the healing journey into a set of steps, essentially. And I'd say there's probably 8 things overriding, say, kind of headings. Obviously there's a lot of detail between, but I definitely say the first one is,
okay, hold on, I'm sorry, I gotta interrupt you. Hold on, I gotta go back because I skipped something. I love how you said you pushed yourself out of your comfort zone, and you pushed yourself to do things that you would not have normally done. And because they cause us to live in fear, and I encourage people, just take the next step, just do it anyway. Start to see yourself differently than they told you that you were. And it's powerful and it's empowering. And you will continue to live in fear if you live behind this barrier of what they said that you should. It's stepping outside of that gives you the strength to, oh, I did that. Okay, I did that too. Oh, I did that too. So did you go back to school to become a counselor, or were you already
I
a counselor?
did, yes. No, so as a result of what I'd gone through, I attended in the UK, there's what's called the Freedom Program, and it's a 12-week program where you attend in person, or you can now do it online. And it's like a group of women who have all come out of an abusive relationship. And it's quite amazing because it's basically gives you the community, because obviously you're isolated when you're in an abusive relationship. And even if you have a good support network, after a while, what I find is people don't understand. They're kind of like, have you not got over that yet?
Yeah.
You know, 6 months in, they're still not understanding why you're not recovered and why you're still traumatized by what you went through. And that is really invalidating, to be able to, you know, have these type of people saying these type of things. It could be very damaging. So I joined this group, I attended it. And then what I did is, after the group, I kind of set up a little subgroup with some of the ladies and kind of just arranged our own little group sessions. And then it was run by like social services and the council who run it. So they then said to me, did I want to train to actually become a facilitator myself? So I was like, you know what, I will.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Good for you.
So I trained, and then I started running my own support groups, and it just kind of went from there. I kind of made the decision because like I'd said, I'd lived in fear for so long, and I was so closed off to everything. I thought one way is to build your confidence is you have to challenge yourself. You have to step outside your comfort zone, and you just have to do it, because when you do these things, it helps rebuild your confidence, and then you try the next thing and the next thing. So one thing I did was I was like, I'm just going to say yes. Stuff that I would normally say no to, I thought, I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to do it.
Good for
Scary as. But
good for you.
What I found is, by having that attitude, it was incredibly healing, and it really helped my confidence. But it opened up so many different opportunities and avenues that I would never have thought would have even happened. So, for instance, when I did the boudoir, the photo shoot, off the back of that, the photographer who did the shoot, he then did a gallery show, and he asked me to be featured as one of the main models, because obviously my story of where I'd come from and why I did the shoot and everything was so empowering. So I was then featured like in this massive art gallery, like 3-foot photo of myself butt naked up on the wall for strangers to look at. You know what I mean? And then he asked me if I'd like to give a talk, you know, a little speech at the thing. And I was like, yes, I'll do it. This was when I was saying yes. And it just opened up avenues, because from that, I then got involved with a charity in the UK that was all about body confidence. And I became an ambassador for them, and then started doing some work in the UK around promoting body confidence with children and adults. And obviously, particularly from my angle of not having issues with body confidence until I came out of an abusive relationship where I had major issues with how I looked.
You went in with no issues. You came out with issues, and then you became a spokesperson. To help other women. And I love how you talk about starting to say yes. Because when we start to say yes to things that we would have shied away from or decided not to do because we didn't think we were worthy or didn't think we were capable, we start to realize that the things that they said about us weren't true in the first place. Like, I am smart enough, I am pretty enough, I am bold enough, I can do these things. And I love when you talk about challenging yourself, stepping outside of your comfort zone and doing things that you may normally not have done. Okay, so I know that you said there are some steps to healing that you began to incorporate and use with your own survivors that you work with. So what are some of those steps?
So the first one is you need to educate yourself. Education is vital, because I know when I was in my abusive relationship, I didn't know it was abusive. I made excuses, justifications. I thought it was because he was homesick. He was stressed from work. It was because we was culturally different. It was because he was younger than me. It was because we just had a baby. It was because of this and that. And, you know, because obviously what I'm trying to do, and what I think everyone does, is you try and make sense of the confusion, because you're in a completely abnormal situation and your brain is trying to rationalize and explain and make sense of it. You know, our brain is designed to survive, but not to thrive. So when you think about when you're in an abusive relationship, it's all about survival. It's like your brain will go into automatic modes to protect you.
Yeah.
And that could be any number of things. And obviously you're trying to understand everything. So yeah, education is the key. So I read, I think the first book I read was amazing. It was Inside the Minds of Angry and Controlling Men by Lundy Bancroft. And why? Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
And why I picked it is because my ex always seemed to be angry. I never thought he was controlling, but he always seemed to be angry. And I couldn't understand why he was angry, because I'm like, what is there to be angry about? But really reading that book opened my eyes to the fact that this anger is actually manufactured and it's done as an act, and they're not really angry because they can switch it on and off depending on who's in the room. And quite often they'll pretend to be angry to intimidate you, to control you, to make you shut up, to make you do what it is they want to do as a control tactic. I mean, obviously you have to be careful with this, because if the person you're with is violent with you, then there's always going to be an escalation. I know with me, it went from emotional, mental abuse to physical abuse. Probably the physical stuff started a year later, just after my daughter was born. So it does tend to escalate, and you do have to be careful with it. But it is helpful understanding that a lot of what they do and how they behave is actually strategy with a bunch of tactics. I mean, I kind of say to my clients that essentially when you go into a relationship wanting love, respect, you want to grow together as a couple, you want to build as a family, you want to do all this positive stuff. But essentially they've got a business plan, and their business plan has a strategy and it has tactics, and it's all about control, and it's all about getting as much supply off of you as possible.
Right.
And obviously that supply can take many forms. It's emotional, physical, sexual, financial. It could be that you look good, so you prop up their ego. It could be because of your own personal status. It increases their status. It could be because you're of a more higher intellect, so you're able to help them improve their career and get their qualifications. It's basically all about supply. It's why when we come out of that relationship, we are not tired, but we're drained. And it's because we have been left empty. And it's because they, not only are they identity thieves, but I call them soul vampires. They will take everything and suck you dry.
Yeah. And I think that's a really tough one for people to recognize and acknowledge that happened. Because when you walk out of a relationship, like, what just happened to me? You feel completely deflated, and you feel deflated, and you literally have to build yourself back up. So somebody was asking if I wanted to become a counselor, how do I do that? And so my recommendation, of course, depending on how you want to go about it, if you want to go about it, you need to go back to school and get your degree of some sort or certification to be able to do so, is the best way. Okay. So number one is education. What's number two?
The next one is you need to start talking about the abuse. You need to start sharing your experience with people. So which goes on to my next point, which is you need a support network. So whether you are talking with your friends, your family, or you join a Facebook group. So for instance, I run a Facebook group. It's called Self-Love After Abuse. If you search for it, and it's private. So obviously it's everyone. We're all in there together. People are sharing stories, sharing tips, and people, you can not be alone, and you can start talking about your abuse, because a lot of what we experience, we don't think it's abusive. We're confused by it. We think maybe it was somehow our fault. We don't understand the feelings of guilt and shame we have. We are trying to, maybe we've got children with them, so we can't go no contact. What do you do if you can't go no contact? Are you trying to divorce a narcissist? Are you trying to do a financial settlement with them? It's like, it's a lot, because I think people who don't and haven't been through this and don't understand, maybe certain friends might be like, but it's just a breakup, get over it, it's normal. And it's not.
There's nothing normal about leaving an abusive or
It's
narcissistic
not.
relationship. And I agree. Find your tribe, find your people. You can't necessarily talk to a friend or a cousin or family member about it because they don't understand. So I think, like she said, finding a group, finding a support network that understands what you're going through. And that's why these things are really, really important. And I think for myself too, talking about it helped me to start to realize that I wasn't by myself in this, because they'll have you think this is just an isolated incident. It's just you.
Exactly.
My ex-husband had me believe that everyone I knew they beat their wives. Like, it was told, he literally named people. And I was like, oh my goodness, are you serious? Like, this is how he had me, like, after years, And so I'm like, I couldn't believe that they would beat their spouse. And I literally believed it. So you have to get yourself detoxed. You have to get all of the lies out of your head that they tell you, and really get yourself around people who believe you. That's what I love about what I do. That's what I love about what you do, is we say, no, you're not crazy. This did happen. That was not normal. And honestly, it's that simple. Letting someone know what they endured was not okay. It was not normal. And you're not by yourself. And the thing about it is, once you start speaking up about it, you free other people to do the same.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I had family members. I'm like, you too? This happened to you too? I was shocked. Because if no one's talking about it, and I see people say all the time, well, because you talked about it, I'm free to talk about it now too. I realize that I'm not, the only one that experienced it.
Yes, that's what
I agree.
I
I can't pronounce your first name, but I do agree that it's like a death. But they don't die, you lose. Yes, I felt like that when I got divorced. I felt like it was a death. Like, I had to mourn as though it was a funeral, because I lost my husband. I lost the life that I wanted for my family, for my children, and I had to mourn it. And that's okay. So it's okay to stop and just mourn the loss.
Totally.
Because if you don't, you still carry it. You don't allow yourself to mourn. And that's so important.
It's really important. And one of the things I think is, like, we come out of that relationship and we kind of just want to move on and forget about it.
Of course.
But that's not really going to help you in your healing. It's like, you have to feel everything to be able to heal from it. You have to process everything. And when we leave an abusive relationship, we will go into a grief cycle. And like, a grief cycle is made up of 5 stages, which is denial and isolation, anger, bargaining. So you're bargaining with yourself and say, what if only, maybe if I did this. And we kind of think that maybe if we behave differently, we could change it. The next one is, we'll be depressed, but it's not a depression as in necessarily you can't get out of bed. It's just a feeling of sadness and regret. You regret, why did I stay so long? Why did I allow that to happen? When obviously you didn't allow it to happen, because essentially you didn't know, right? Which goes back to my first step of healing, which is educate yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then when you've healed, you reach this place of acceptance. And I know I know you're there, and I know I'm definitely there. It's like, when you're in this place of acceptance, you don't have regrets, you don't feel guilty, you don't even think about them. It's like, you don't want revenge, you're not angry, you just couldn't care less. You just get on with your life. Exactly.
I was like, high five you, because you get to that point. Okay, Jack Jeevan, thank you for spelling Jack Jeevan. Sorry, but thank you. You made some really good points. You get to the point where you're just free. I don't care what happens to you. That's your business. I'm living my best life each and every day, because I realize it's a gift, and I know exactly what you mean. I remember at one point I was so angry. I was like, if he could just feel a little bit of the pain he caused me, and now it's just like,
Yeah, well, see,
you just choose not to carry it. And I think you said it best when you said you have to feel it to heal it. And I'm not saying it feels like hell. It hurts. It burns. It stings. It's horrible. We're not minimizing that. We're not minimizing that. It hurts like hell. But guess what? You can't just bury it. Like, you bury it, but guess what? It's still there, and it's still going to come up.
Exactly. And the thing is, I get asked a lot is, why do I have nightmares? Why do I have panic attacks? Why do I have random pain in my body? And all of that is because it's suppressed trauma. You see, and it impacts you negatively. And why you have the nightmares is because your brain, your mind is trying to find a way to make sense of it, which comes on to my 4th point of healing, is get professional help. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's like, yes, YouTube videos will get you so far. That's part of educating yourself, but it's not bespoke, and it's not tailored to you, and it's not going to be specific enough to help you as an you know, an important individual to get the healing that you need. And I think, you know, yes, therapy is expensive, but essentially therapy is also self-love. It's a gift that you give yourself.
Yeah.
Because how many years have you been deprived of not buying that clothes that you wanted, or the food that you liked, or these types of things, because you've given everything to your abuser, or the next one is you normally give everything to your children, and you just discount yourself all the time. So
you're a worthy investment. You're a worthy investment.
Totally.
You're worth it. I mean, honestly, we'd spend that in a meal or on some shoes. I would encourage it. And again, I know some organizations allow you to get a few sessions for free, depending on your insurance. I think, especially an advocate that can tailor your to you specifically, like Zoe just said. Everybody said we could watch a million YouTube videos, but if we don't have that one-on-one, hey, this is my story, this is what I went through, this is how I'm processing my trauma, it needs to be specific for you. So we encourage you, of course, therapists have therapists. It's a worthy investment, and you're worth it.
Yes, totally. And I know in my healing journey, I probably had 6 to 8 months of therapy. And I know that without that, I wouldn't be where I am now. Like, the question I get asked all the time is, how long will it take me to heal? And I'm like, it takes as long as it takes. You can't put a time limit on it. And you have to be patient, and you have to be kind to yourself. But you do have to do the work. If you want to heal, time alone isn't going to do it. It's like, time will help, but like I said, you need to educate yourself, have a support network, talk about it, get professional help.
And allow yourself the time to heal. Just don't look at healing as like an end, like a finish line. You're living while healing. You're laughing while healing. You're finding joy while healing. Find the joy on the healing journey. Don't think that, well, once I heal, then I'll be able to enjoy life. No, you know, start to enjoy it now, even if it's a little thing, sleeping safely at night, not sleeping with a bar or a knife under your pillow, you know, not living in fear anymore. Just take each and every day and realize I'm healing as I go along. You know, okay, I cried today, I literally lost it. That's okay. That's part of the healing journey. But don't tell yourself that when I heal, then maybe I can, you know? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And that, I think, you know, we all have that outfit in our wardrobe that we keep for that special occasion, you know, because we just want to keep it for best. And I think sometimes, like you say, that whole approach to healing can be, well, I won't do this until that, and I won't do that. But it goes back to my point I made earlier, is just say yes. Challenge yourself.
Say yes to you. Say yes to you.
Exactly. It's like, you don't know where you could end up or what you could end up doing.
Agree. All right. So what's your next point that you have?
Well, kind of pretty much what we're saying. Do something that makes you happy, because what I've found is, obviously, you're not happy in that relationship. You do everything that makes them happy, and you sacrifice your whole being for them. And the things that you used to do, that you used to find enjoyment in, you no longer do. So make a list. You might sit there and think, oh my days, what makes me happy? I just don't know. I can't think of anything. So think about what you used to like doing before. So on my list, I had ice skating, horse riding, drawing, painting, dancing, wearing bright colors, getting my hair done, getting my nails done, meeting friends, going for coffee, enjoying nature, having a bath. Because even for me, like, I couldn't have a bath because a bath became an unsafe space, because obviously I'm laying there naked and I'm in the house with a rapist. You know what I mean? So it can be anything that you do for yourself that makes you happy, that brings you back to the place and the person that you was before.
I love that. I love that. I love, just do little small things for yourself. It doesn't have to be something expensive or massive, but what you'll start to do is slowly find out who you are again, you know, and that's really important. So I want to talk about something real quick. Why is it so important to heal after an abusive relationship? And what are the things that, I mean, what if you don't heal? What if you don't take the time to heal? And I think someone said it in the comments, you'll find yourself in a relationship after relationship that's unhealthy. So
yes, you will.
What do you think, Zoe?
Yes, I mean, I totally agree with that. If you don't take the time to heal, you will end up with, like I said, nightmares, panic attacks, or just, if not to that level, you will have anxiety, you will have depression, you will have pains in your body. So for instance, if you have unresolved trauma, because this is what it is when we come out of an abusive relationship, we've experienced trauma. If you've been in an abusive relationship and there's been cheating, that causes an intense betrayal within your body, which causes you to have pain surrounding your ovaries, your kidneys, your stomach, and it's unresolved trauma. So if you find that you've got these strange pains in your body, migraines, headaches, backaches, and you go to doctors and they run the tests and they're like, there's nothing wrong with you, what you'll probably find it is it's unresolved, unhealed trauma. So it has an impact on our body, right? And then also, if you don't heal and you don't identify what caused or what made it easier for that person to manipulate you, maybe it's, most of the time I find it's boundaries. It's because we don't have boundaries, and our boundaries are completely ineffective, or we think we're setting boundaries and we're not. I mean, boundaries is another point on my list of healing. It's a huge area that you have to work on, because boundaries protect you. Boundaries keep you safe.
Yes.
Boundaries will stop you from getting into another relationship, because that's abusive, because what boundaries do is boundaries make you the most important in your life. Boundaries,
finally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's boundaries are where you're setting the standard. It's not you looking to a man or a woman and saying, I don't really know what I want, but I want you to make me happy.
Yeah.
And putting all the power and control in their hand. It's you saying, I know what my needs are. I know what my wants are. I know how to set boundaries. I know how to implement boundaries. And if you don't like it, tough.
Yeah, that's good. And I think you need to get connected with someone. It is very hard. You need to get connected to someone who can help you set those boundaries too. Because for example, if we want to protect our yard, we're not going to put up a little flimsy fence, made of some little barbed wire or whatever. We're not going to we're going to put up a fence that we know can protect us, can keep people out, can keep us in. It's safe. It'll withstand the wind. We have to have boundaries that are that solid, that because we're protecting something, and it's ourself, it's our emotions, it's our mind, it's our physical body. So and I think you just said it was so good just now how you said talk about boundaries, but then you set a boundary, but someone can jump over it so easily, or they can knock it down and it be irrelevant. No, do not talk to me like this. I don't like this. I don't permit people to do this. Set those boundaries and mean them. And you're going to lose a lot of people and friends, and that's okay, because those people didn't respect your boundaries in the first place. But remember, your boundaries keep those people who don't respect it out, and it continues to protect you.
Exactly. And I also think as well, often with boundaries, I think why it's so difficult is when we don't have them, or we're not used to setting them, or we've been in relationships where our boundaries have been ignored or discredited, is when we try to implement boundaries, we feel guilty about it. You know, we feel that we're being unreasonable. We think we're being mean. We feel guilty. We think we're not being kind. And it brings up all these negative emotions, which often means what happens is we will break our own boundary.
Yeah. Very true.
You know what I mean? And it's like you need to take the time. I mean, this is one of the things I do with my clients is I will spend a lot of time with them working on what are your needs, what are your wants, how can you set a boundary or boundaries that are going to keep you safe.
Yeah.
And
I love that. That's really good. It's really important. And even if you're home and you take the time that I like this, I don't like this. This makes me happy. This makes me sad. And it seems very basic, but it's true, because if you're in a relationship or you meet someone, whether it's a family member, whoever, and they're doing something that makes you upset or sad, you realize, wait a minute, someone's affecting me. Someone's crossing one of my boundaries that I've decided to set.
Yeah, and the thing is with boundaries, it's like, yes, it's all very well setting a boundary, but boundaries come in parts. You need to be able to implement it, and you have to implement it with a consequence. Otherwise, your boundary is ineffective. So it's a bit like, say, for instance, you have a friend, you arrange to meet at 7 o'clock and they're always late. So you say to them the next time you meet them, I don't like it when you're late. Please meet me on time. Next time you don't meet, next time you turn up late, I won't be here. I'm going to go home. So what you're doing is you're stating the boundary, you're setting your intention, and you're putting in the consequence.
Absolutely.
But what do we do when we next meet them and they're late? Do we still wait, or do we implement our consequence? Exactly.
Let's implement our consequence. I mean, so the truth is, if you go to work, right, and you're late, there's a consequence. If you say you're going to be somewhere you're not, you're supposed to be in a meeting, you're not, you probably won't have a job for much longer. So the world can go ahead and put consequences in, but you need to do the same for yourself.
Totally.
Which is really, really important.
Yeah, and if you feel guilty or mean because you've decided to leave them, you have to remember that you gave them the choice. You told them what would happen, and they chose to continue to disrespect you and ignore your boundary. That's not you being mean. That's them making an intentional choice and having a consequence based on their actions. It's got nothing to do with you.
Exactly. And having been through what you've been through, experienced trauma, and experienced someone who completely, obliterated any boundary that you put up, violated you in so many different ways. It's time for you to stand up for yourself and say, this is what I like, what I don't like. Please don't cross this boundary. Okay, I see that you did that. Don't do it again, because this boundary has a consequence. If you do this, then I won't. If you do this one, I won't be here. I can't be with you. You can't see the children. You have to respect the boundaries. So
totally. It's boundaries. You just cannot underestimate the importance of boundaries at all. It's like they will keep you safe from anyone who is toxic, abusive, narcissistic, sociopathic, psychopathic, I don't know, whatever label you want to put on a person. It's like a boundary will help keep you safe. And I mean, we're talking emotionally safe, mentally safe, physically safe, financially safe, sexually safe, intellectually safe. It's like there are so many different areas that you want to be looking at where your boundaries are. You might have really solid boundaries around money, but really weak boundaries around when it comes to having sex or something like that, because you feel guilty and coerced, so you feel that you have to do it on a first date or whatever the situation. It's like, if anything is done and it's not really your choice and you feel guilt tripped or coerced into it, then or you feel resentment, or you start to feel angry about it, that's generally where a boundary is needed.
Yeah. And I love it because somebody said something in the comments, I'm not going to say their name, that they're now going to set boundaries, in their workplace, because they realize having been in a relationship, once you've been in, our inhibitions are down, our boundaries are down, and we allow people that we're not even in a relationship to cross these boundaries, to say and do things to us that we don't like. And so it's time, and I'm telling you, in every area of your life, whether it's with your parents, your family, your siblings, your friends, you have to set boundaries, because you teach people how to treat you. I always try to explain it like this. So Zoe, I see you face to face and I slap you. You don't do anything. So when I see you next time, Zoe, what am I going to do? I'm going to slap you again. Absolutely. I might slap you twice this time. Why? Because you didn't stop me the first time. But if the next time I see you put your hand up to stop me from hitting you, I know, wait a minute, I've done something wrong. I've crossed the line. I've crossed the boundary. I told that to like the middle school when I go teach about, you teach people how to treat you. Immediately, if I know I can't approach Zoe in a certain way or speak to her a certain way because she doesn't allow it, and you can do this with kindness, respect, compassion, but you teach people how to treat you. And it's very, very important, especially having been out of trauma, because what happens is all of your inhibitions and everything are down. You feel broken, and people that do not respect you will cross over all your boundaries. They will continue, and you will continue in different relationships that feel oppressed and down because of the things that you've experienced. So yeah, no one is worth that. You don't give anyone that much power over your life again.
No, totally not. And boundaries is a form of self-love and self-care.
Self-love.
So it's one of the reasons why I named my practice Self-Love After Abuse, because self-love encompasses more than just a bubble bath and a face mask. Self-love is getting your therapy. Self-love is joining the support group. Self-love is doing the stuff that makes you happy, which obviously could be your bubble bath. But self-love is setting boundaries. Self-love is going no contact with people that don't deserve your time and energy. And that could be anyone. I'm not just talking about the abusive person you're with. It's, which kind of goes on to my next point of healing, is you need to cleanse your environment. So whether, when you've come out of an abusive relationship, whether that's a physical cleanse, so maybe you want to buy new bedding, buy new underwear, redecorate, get rid of all the stuff that is theirs, burn letters and things that they've sent you, so that that you can't smell them in your house, that you don't that they're just not there
Yeah.
present, even though they're not there. And then the other thing is, part of cleansing your environment is detoxing your Facebook feed, your Instagram feed. If there's anything on there that makes you feel rubbish about yourself, so whether it's Kim Kardashian looking amazing, but it makes you feel crap because you're still trying to work on your body confidence, don't follow her. Delete it.
Do what you
Fill
need
your
to do.
feed
Yes.
with things that inspire you, that make you feel educated, supported, and not rubbish about yourself.
Yeah, and empowered for sure.
Totally.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and just cleanse. And then obviously the next part of cleansing is looking at your friends list. Who do you socially interact with on, social media, but then also who do you physically interact with? It's like, are they bringing something of quality and value to your life? If all they're bringing is stress, negativity, and drama, and you come away from that conversation feeling exhausted and unheard, do they really deserve to be in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. That's so good. And especially too, I want to add on to that, mutual friends. Maybe you can't be mutual friends anymore. If they're still friends with him, then maybe then they can't be friends with you anymore. Yeah, because you have to protect your space. And of course, flying monkeys exist and they take information from you and take it over back to them. So you have to protect your space. And that doesn't matter if it's a family member. I meet so many people say, oh, my mom still really loves my abuser, or my grandmother, they're still really close. That's fine. Well, guess what? I'm not going to mom's house, especially if he's there. You have to do what you have to do. And someone just said, I will never let them hurt me. Yeah, I'll never let anyone hurt me that way again. That's just a stance that you have to take. So
exactly. And people might think you're being mean. They don't understand why you're not having contact with this person or this family member anymore. But ultimately, they're not you and they're not in your life. And I remember what someone said to me when I was probably about a year into my healing journey, is they said to me, they said, you are the most important person in your life. And I didn't feel that. I was like, what are you talking about? That's the most rubbish statement ever. But I was like, you know what? It is true, because if, like, my daughter, she comes around me, it's like I'm the sun and she's rotating, or is it the moon and rotating? And people rotate around you. And that's because you're the central piece. It's like you are the most important person in your life. And you have to treat yourself like that. You make it an affirmation, stick it up on your mirror. So every morning you look at it and you look in the mirror as you're brushing your teeth and you say, yes, I am the most important person in my life. And I'm going to treat myself like that, because this is how we show our self-love.
I agree. Self-love is so much of everything that you said. I use the sticky notes. I had sticky notes on all over my house, literally, all over my mirror, positive statements about myself, Bible verses, whatever it is that I needed to motivate myself. That's what I did. And and so now, I tell my kids, aren't I fabulous? Like I say all this, and they're like, oh, mom, please. But you know what? Your mom wasn't always like this. It was a totally different story. And so you slowly build yourself up to love yourself all over again. Love things about yourself, from the way that you look to the way that you walk to the way that you dress. You're worth loving all of this, regardless of anything that they ever told you. And so I love that you have, it's called Self-Love After Abuse. You guys, Zoe's information is on the page here, selfloveafterabuse.com. You can also check out her groups and her Facebook page on Facebook and Instagram at Self-Love After Abuse, because we can't love anyone else. We can't love anything else until we take care of ourselves. Like you said, we're the most important person in our life. And then, like you said, we radiate that love to others. We radiate that joy. It's seen in our eyes, in our smile, in our energy. We have to have that within ourselves first. And we're not telling you it's easy. You're looking at two women who crawl to get there. The smiles on our faces, the laughter that you hear is what we crawl to get to. But we're telling you that you can get there too. We want you to get there.
Totally. And it's why one of the reasons why I speak out about my story, because I think I was in the darkest place ever in my life. And, I remember putting a knife to my wrist and thinking, shall I do this?
Yeah. Yep.
So it's like, I know, I understand it's hard.
Yeah. Yes.
But you can get there. I mean, I'm now in a happy, healthy relationship. I have my own business. It's like, yes, I had to restart my life at 41, which is awful, but it's not impossible,
yeah. But it wasn't impossible. And then look at the smile on your face. Your joy radiates on the outside of you. So we know it felt awful.
Exactly.
You wouldn't have said, I think I'll restart my life at 41. No matter if it's 21, 41, 61, if you're coming out of an abusive relationship, you can love yourself again. You can get free. You can be happy. You can turn your life around and be able to help others. So Zoe, thank you so much for joining us. Again, take 3. No electricity outage.
No electricity outage. I know, it's amazing.
But Zoe, thank you so much. You guys can find Zoe on Facebook and Instagram at Self Love After Abuse. Thank you all of us for joining us. If you're watching a replay, please just let us know that you watched it, and we're glad that you were here, Zoe. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, Zoe, don't go anywhere. We're going to say bye to them, but you hang in. Bye, guys.